In this video, I'm telling the life story of a Lego minifigure, going all the way back from his birth to death. Our story begins in a hospital in Lego City.
Push, honey!
I'm trying! What a beautiful baby boy.
After he arrived, his parents named him George. The baby needed a room to live in, so I built a nursery that has clouds on the walls that were inspired by Toy Story. There's a small crib that looks a bit like a jail cell, and in the corner there's a box of toys, including this stuffed rabbit, a ball to play with, and this small maraca for the baby to shake. Eventually, George learned to walk, and over the years he got bigger and bigger. One day, as George and his mom were leaving the grocery store, they saw that the local animal shelter was finding families for the dogs and cats. Suddenly, one of the puppies leapt out of the basket and into George's lap, and since his mom saw the connection, she let George adopt him, and from that day forward, Scout would be George's best friend. George loved taking Scout to the dog park, where he taught him all kinds of tricks and skills. Some of the best memories from growing up include holidays and celebrations, so that's what we're building next, starting with Halloween, where we're going to be building a trick-or-treating scene. This year, George is going as a spaceman with a group of his friends who are wearing other costumes. After laying down this cobblestone sidewalk, I set up this black iron fence to add to the creepy atmosphere and sprinkled in some small pieces as fall leaves. I then added a couple of pumpkins and this little squirrel. Next, I started building up the front of this house where George and his friends are trick-or-treating. It has this lamp and a scarecrow mannequin on the porch. Out in front of the house, I built up a creepy looking tree with a bunch of Lego arm pieces and Harry Potter wands. And with that, our Halloween build is finished. Moving on to the next holiday, we have Thanksgiving, where we're going to be building a huge feast. To build the hardwood floor of the kitchen, I used a ton of these textured brick pieces to build a slab that fits perfectly into this area, and then laid down a table that is complete with a Thanksgiving turkey, along with 8 chairs for all of the family members. On the wall, we have some family portraits and this fall decoration, as well as another table of food. And Grandpa's always trying to sneak into the pies. Huh? And since you always learn about the Pilgrims and Native Americans in school, I made a bunch of minifigures of them as an added bonus. I also built up this small turkey as a decoration that's standing in the corner of the kitchen, and I also included this turkey suit guy, who I'm counting as one of George's cousins. And that completes our Thanksgiving build, where all the family is gathered together enjoying all of the delicious food. I couldn't bring up the holidays without making a build for Christmas, so I started by setting up this brick fireplace that has some burning logs as well as a wreath, and it's big enough for Santa to fit inside it. I hung up a couple of stockings that use just 4 pieces each, and on the other side there's a shelf topped with some miniature Christmas trees and a snow globe. In the corner, the Christmas tree is set up on this rug and topped with this golden crown piece. And of course, we have some presents as well. This Christmas, George got a G.I. Joe action figure that he had been asking for months. Last, I added a Christmas rug, left out some cookies and milk for Santa, and included this chair for George's dad. For our last segment, I built George's best birthday memory, the time he had a Star Wars themed party. I set up his giant birthday cake on a table in the middle of the room and placed a red and white banner of flags behind it. George is wearing a Darth Vader costume and his friends are dressed as other characters. For his birthday, he got some lightsabers that him and his friends dueled with. And at the end of the night, they watched one of the movies. And that finishes our display for all of the different holidays. Another part of growing up is getting your first car and learning how to drive, so I built this old red truck that George's dad passed down to him. It has adjustable rear view mirrors and doors, a working tailgate, and a couple of other details. Both George and his dad can fit inside it so that he can give him tips while he's learning. Our next major milestone is George's graduation from high school, so I built up this podium where all the students walk to receive their diplomas. These flags are the school's colors, and in the center of the stage, I placed this podium that has the principal's speech on it that bored everyone half to death in the audience. Blah, 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 blah. When it was his turn, George was scared that he would trip and fall, but he ended up doing just fine. One day, when George was out taking Scout for a walk, he noticed the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. And he knew he had to introduce himself, and before he even realized it, they were getting married. For the wedding rings, I'm using these cool chrome pieces from the Lord of the Rings sets. And to give George some fancy shoes, I'm using these black spike pieces. When I was coming up with the idea for this video, I was partly inspired by the famous board game Life. In it, you spin a wheel like the one from Wheel of Fortune to make your way across a game board that takes you through all of life's major milestones, like getting a job, buying a house, and having kids. So I thought it'd be fun to build some of the cards that are in the game, like this one for going on a ski trip, so I quickly built up this mountainside for George and Shelby to go skiing on. However, on one of his descents, George crashed his head into a rock, giving him a major concussion. Another card was for a dolphin cruise, which worked out perfectly since I built this yacht in my last video about winning the lottery that you should definitely watch after this one. This card is for snorkeling in a coral reef, so I gave George some snorkeling gear and whipped up a small one for him to swim through. And finally, this card is for buying a teepee, so I got to use these two plastic pieces that came from this Lone Ranger set. And after building it, I added a campfire, this hiking backpack, and a sleeping bag all inside of it. The next milestone on our list is buying a house, and for it, I'm gonna try to build the most traditional Lego house I can come up with. I started by outlining the basic shape, and then laid a foundation with these bricks. I set up a porch with these cool grate pieces before building up the walls and windows around all of the sides of the house, and added this dark red chimney on the back that connects to a fireplace on the inside. Speaking of which, the interior has an open floor plan. These couches section off one area, and behind them you'll find a kitchen with custom counters, a refrigerator, a double sink, and a dishwasher where Shelby enjoys trying out new recipes.
Oh, hello.
I added this corner table with some knickknacks, as well as this bookshelf that uses jumper plates as books because they have ridges in them that help them look distinct. There's a small dining room table for two, and an office setup with this cool laptop piece where George can work from home. Shelby is crafty, so I included some paint supplies for her. The last thing I added on the inside was this bed, and with that we finished the house's interior. After building up the rest of the house's walls, I finished it off by adding these black roof plates that rest in place. And for final touches, I added a flower bed. And I have to say, I think this house definitely looks like a traditional family home. However, after moving in, a zombie apocalypse broke out across the country, and George was drafted into the military as a Jeep driver, so let's build him a Jeep. I went with dark green since it's not only a good color for the military, but also a pretty rare Lego color that I don't use often. It has armored plating on top of it, as well as this chain gun. On the back, there's a ladder and an extra tire. In all, there's room for 4 or 5 soldiers on it, but we need to make the zombie battlefield, which I started by elevating this base plate so that I could build some trenches for the soldiers that are surrounded with barbed wire. The entire area is in ruins with the road and buildings surrounding it falling apart. These planks reinforce the windows, but aren't strong enough to keep the zombies out. At this industrial site, I added a chain and ladder to give the soldiers different levels of elevation. And in this corner, there's a lookout tower that can give them a major advantage. However, the zombies are able to climb the tower. As the zombies continued to invade the area, carnage broke out across the battlefield. In the chaos of all of it, one of George's men was ferociously attacked. However, George rushed up to save him, and even helped him reattach his arm. George returned home where he received a presidential medal for his bravery. And as the years continued, George and Shelby got older and had kids of their own. As they watched them grow up, they taught them how to do things like ride a bike. Entering their golden years together, they even had grandkids. Since they're getting older, I gave Shelby this cane and George this walker that has tennis balls on the bottom of it. Reflecting on his life, George decided to write a book about all of his experiences. And one day, as George was out taking a peaceful walk, he had a heart attack and died. At his funeral, all the citizens of Lego City came to honor his memory. Thanks for watching and see you later.